Today we're going to learn about readability in miniatures.
That the entirety of the cosmos is accessible through each and every individual's mind, connecting to the great mind, the great spirit.
Welcome back to the channel, collectors. So today we're going to learn about readability and how you can use these 3 tips to improve your readability of your miniatures right now. Alright, so if you're ready, let us begin. Okay, collectors, so readability, in my own definition, is about communication. Communication of information to the viewer so that the viewer of the miniature understands what is going on in the miniature. Okay, so I'd like to bring up a very simple example about readability. If you look at this picture right here, this is a picture of a group of human women in silhouette form. So this silhouette, it's very hard to define whose head is whose legs are whose, and whose hands are whose. However, if you split it up right here, you guys can see that immediately you can understand which woman has what hairstyle and which woman has which hand and which leg. So this is in essence a very simple explanation about readability. To me, when I paint my miniatures, readability would be to over-educate the viewer about the forms and shapes of the miniature so that the viewer does not need to perceive and try to understand anything. Okay? So here are 3 tips of how you can improve your readability of your miniatures. Tip number 1, value definition. So in value definition, we use values to help communicate the type of shape and form of the miniatures. As you guys can see in my video right here about understanding values, you guys can also see how light interacts with different shapes. One example I'm going to use today would be Samson the dwarf from Zombicide. I've been painting him for the 90-minute challenges which I'm trying to do daily, and as you guys can see, Samson tends to have the same color throughout the entire mini. He has a grey-white beard, he has silver non-metallic metal armor, and his face is a Caucasian white dwarf. So all in all, it tends to be roughly the same white-grey color. So what can you do to make the miniature a lot more readable? The most important thing is about value definition for this model. As you guys can see, once the shadows and highlights have been placed in right here, you guys really can see that the beard is apart from his arm and his face is also separate from his beard. So this gives a lot of readability on the miniature, and I feel that this is really important and it really makes the miniature stand out. One tip you could use for this is to make sure that every single shape is highlighted and shadowed to make sure that this shape doesn't merge into another shape and the viewer can understand how the miniature is sculpted and shaped without going up close and look at the miniature. Tip number 2, color separation. So color separation is really important because I've seen many examples of miniatures being painted, and of course you can paint it as neat as you can, but the color separation, if the colors are too close, say for example if we look at the Red King right here, the Red King tends to have similar colors throughout, and if you don't have the right color separation, it will look like an entire lump of green. So what can you do to improve your color separation? So right here, if you guys can see, this is Tyra, the barbarian girl from Black Sun Miniatures. She's using roughly the same colors in the entire miniature, and it's going to be very hard to do some part separation. However, if you look closely, let's say for example in between her breast and the piece of leather covering, this component has a little bit of black lining in between each color. This lends a lot to color separation because the eyes are able to take a break in between 2 colors and able to discern the 2 items from each other. This might seem like a very basic example, but I have been corrected by the likes of Kasha, and she's told me that it's just a simple black line and will make the miniature look a lot more defined, and you guys should try it out. Tip number 3, material understanding. Alright, the next topic we're going to talk about is material understanding. So for material understanding, you can use the different types of materials even though you're using the same colors to start to break and define and educate your viewer about what is going on the miniature. As seen in Nelly the Barmaid right here, Nelly the Barmaid was painted using the same colors in a cloak and on a black armor. Both colors used are exactly the same, however, how did you differentiate these two materials? So for example, you can use number 1, value distribution. So if you guys can see right here on the cloak tends to be more of the mid-tone and the highlight doesn't seem to be very extreme because I wanted to give it a very satin feel. However, on the black armor, as you guys can see, it is a lot less mid-tone and a lot more highlight being shown. And the highlights are a lot more extreme. So this is an example of material understanding. There are other ways of doing material separation, including smooth and rough. Say for example, you want to portray a furry surface, you can use our tutorial right here of how to paint furry surfaces on the dog fur. Okay, this texturing technique, you can also use it to do bone armor and stuff like that. However, if you contrast this next to a very smooth looking armor, you can tell that these two items are separate and the viewer can automatically make inferences of what is going on with this miniature. Alright, those are my 3 tips about improving your readabilities in your miniatures. Just remember these 3 tips and your miniatures will look and be a lot more understandable after this. So remember that the first point is value definition. This will allow your viewer to understand how the shape of the miniature is without looking at the miniature. Number 2 is color separation. So for color separation, you want to make sure that the viewer is able to discern where the color ends and where the color begins. This allows the viewer to understand where materials and components end and begin. So number 3 is material understanding. Material understanding speaks about whether the viewer can understand if a smooth surface is put next to a rough surface, they can make a separation between the two. So these are some of the ways that you can improve your miniatures, and I hope that you try them out. So what do you think about the video? Let me know in the comments below. Hit the like, subscribe, and all the other stuff because we post videos every day. You don't want to miss out on any of our videos, okay? So if you can afford it, be a patron today. Patrons get extended play footage to many of my videos and you guys get to interact with me so that we get to become better painters together. I hope you enjoyed yourself and I'll see you in the next video. See you guys.